I've realised by making a video that's called Men Only, that's going to be suddenly really appealing, isn't it, to women to watch this. And if you are a woman watching this video, absolutely fabulous. And perhaps if you find this interesting, then if you have a man in your life or in your family that you think would welcome hearing this, then please pass it to them. Thank you for all the support over the recent videos. You'd be amazed at the amount of guys who are contacting me on personal messages, on direct messages, telling me what they're going through and some of the real challenges they're having to face with their mental health. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, and so I can't really give that direct help, but if it does help you to share it with someone, to share your experience of what you're going through or what you have been, then please contact me, because sometimes just telling someone excuse me, can be really helpful. Have you ever noticed how there are self-help books for a whole different groups of people in life? So right from birth, there's self-help books for us all on how to raise babies, how to look after children. There's self-help books for teenagers, for students, how to survive at university. There's self-help books, quite rightly, on how to find a job and how to progress your career. Quite rightly, there's self-help books and stuff online for minority groups so they can get some help and support. Quite rightly, there's been a growth of online and books and organisation support for women going through the menopause. And then that takes us right through to support, doesn't it, for us when we have a loved one die and we have to deal with the consequences of that. The reason why I'm saying that is that there's a group missing, and that's what I want to talk about today. There's a group missing, and that's men between 45 and 55 up to 60, and that's a problem. And there's no coincidence that that's the group when you see a higher increase in mental health problems and in attempted suicides. 75% of suicides in the UK are by men, and many of them are in that age between 45, 55 and 60, and so we've got to do something about it. And I've written some notes to help me through this, because when men hit their mid-40s, there is a real and a tangible change in their physiology. Physically, because of our age, we start to lose muscle mass, and we have that reduced ability to exercise. It's not a laziness thing. It's not something you can just oomph your way out of. Physiologically, it gets harder. A lot of that is because of the changes of the level of testosterone in our body, and the fat in our body starts to be redistributed in a different way. And as men, we don't like getting the bellies that we get, and we don't like the man boobs, but that's physiology. That's the reduction in testosterone in our body. That's the redistribution of fat, and that happens. What also happens to us, and we can't do much about it, is sleep gets harder, tiredness increases, and our ability to concentrate becomes much harder too. And so to share with you that actually those things happen to men between 45, 55 and 60 is important, because it has an impact on us, and we don't really talk about that. And they're not things that you can conquer by yoga, and you can't conquer it by meditation. It's about recognizing that those changes happen, and those changes have an enormous impact on how the world defines us and what's expected of us. We never talk about it as men, do we? Let alone in a wider society. But as we get older, our libido decreases enormously. When you're in your 20s, you can walk around with an erection for about 3 days at a time, can't you? But it changes when you get older. When you get into your 50s, it's common for us men to be more able to raise a smile than to raise anything else for a long time. But we never talk about that, and it makes so many men feel ashamed. our family responsibilities start to reduce. You know, for many of us with kids, the kids start to grow up, and the main reason many of them will need you between the ages of 45 and 55 is just the bank of mum and dad. And as they become teenagers and adults, they leave the home and leave a big gap for so many of you. But no one tells us this, and no one tells you that when this stuff hits, it's really fucking hard. It really is. Now, I've got younger children, so I'm still going through that time of having a great time with the kids, but so many of the guys I know, their kids have grown up and emotionally they don't need them anymore. And we know that time's coming for everyone, but it's hard. It's hard. And as a guy, it's important to recognise that we miss that. And that's an important part of recognising how you manage your mental health. You know, and with all this going on, the sleep deprivation, we often therefore have a poorer diet, we have a lack of exercise. Many men will rely too much on booze, and they'll rely on fags. And that's a massive contributor to low self-esteem. And that's why this age group is the biggest age group when men experience anxiety, depression, and for far too many people, it means they think about taking their lives. I was only reading in the news the other day that Danny Murphy, a former footballer for Liverpool, famous footballer, played for England, he's come out and said when he had to retire, he got addicted to cocaine because he needed to find a purpose in his life, and football was his purpose. For many of us, our job is our purpose, and when that's gone, there's a void. And it leads people to increasing risky behaviour, and that's something that we need to change. Now, I'm not an expert on this, of course I'm not, but I do know that I've been taught and I've had therapy about how to address that, and that's the stuff that I want to share about, because the first thing that I share is it was a relief to hear that many of these changes that go on are nature doing its thing, and we can't fight some of that. It happens. You know, I run regularly, I go to the gym regularly, and I kind of think if I was this exercise driven when I was in my 20s, I probably would have looked in much better shape than I did when I was 20. But there's only so much you're going to look good like physically, even at our age, because you have got physiological changes to challenge you. And you know, if there is any help out there, it's those really irritating Facebook groups I see where it tells me that even though I'm 52, I could still have the body of a 20-year-old if I follow this diet. And you look at it and it means I'd have to kind of work out for four times a day, eat no fat whatsoever, and kind of live off lettuce for the next 5 years of my life. And it's just not realistic. It's not realistic at all. Sadly, it's why men at this age often have affairs, looking for new ventures, looking for new ways to feel better, and they'll have second or third marriages in an attempt to find themselves or to somehow re-find their youth. The challenge to how we deal with this is that there is no silver bullet. There is no one answer to sorting this. The place is to recognise that it's okay to get help, that actually this is a tough time and it is okay to get some support. Now, that could be at one end. The drastic end, you might need medication if you're feeling depressed or anxiety, getting some therapy. There's lots of therapists out there that can really help you work this through. Even small incremental changes like a little bit of exercise or a little bit of healthy eating can change, and you can't change this stuff overnight. Any of us can go for a big run one day and then do nothing for 3 months because our legs are hurting. It's more about how you make the small changes that over time help you get through this challenging time. And so my message to men is that it's okay to recognise that this is a really hard time, but you can do something about it, guys. You can. If you're not fulfilled in your career, it's not too late to change. You hear so many men say, well, I'm in my 50s now, I'm just working towards retirement. You don't have to be. You don't have to say this is your lot. You can take a risk. You can do something about it, because we need purpose in our lives. Even in our late 40s and early 50s, We need purpose. We need stuff to get up for that makes us feel good. And if we haven't got that, then absolutely we need to change that. If you're in a relationship that you're not happy with, you need to identify what's making you unhappy, and you need to talk about it, and you need to address it with that person, however hard that is. And it is hard perhaps to talk to a loved one, your partner, or a more extended family member about why you're not happy with that relationship. But if you don't change anything, how you're feeling won't change. Yeah, if you just accept the status quo and you're miserable, you're going to keep being miserable. It really isn't going to change. I get that if your kids are leaving home, it leaves that big void in your life, but you need to find something else to do with your time. And you know, the answer, what are the answers? Well, the answers in the improvements are not something, you won't wake up one morning and go, oh yes, that's what I want to do in my life. They don't come overnight. And making changes, I'm afraid, does take a bit of effort. But if you wait to get it right before you do it, you'll never ever start. And so guys, wherever you're at, whatever challenges you're feeling, it's about identifying what's causing you this upset. And that might not come overnight. You might need to write it down. You might need to talk to someone. You can share it with me on direct messaging. But just to think through what you're unhappy with and what can you do to solve that? What can you do to address that? And so I hope that knowing that so many other men go through this can help you. And as I've said, you won't have all the answers yourself. It is okay to talk to others. Now, I'm in a hotel recording this. I've had a speaking event today that I've done this morning. And in the 20 minutes before I spoke, I stood with two guys just chatting, and they said they'd seen my mental health videos. And we had 20 minutes talking about mental health, our physical health, the challenges of being in our 50s, and just me volunteering that I was willing to talk. Suddenly these guys started opening up, and we had this quite open conversation, and it felt quite a relief to be able to share it, and we giggled about it a bit and we laughed. But it was helpful to share that it's not us going through it on our own. So the reason this was a men-only video is to say, if you're not happy, guys, that's okay. It's okay that you're not happy at this age, because it is a tough age and you are up against it. But you can do something about it. You can do something about it, and you can feel better.